Good afternoon. We are live with the Martial Arts Experience. It's Master Jose Torres coming out to you. And this is the week before Christmas. So I know everybody's probably busy doing their last minute shopping. But I am so excited for my wonderful, wonderful guest that's taking the time out of his busy schedule to come on their show today, on our show today. So without further ado, I'm going to bring him on now and welcome Mr. Luis Esteban. How you doing, sir? How's everything?
I'm doing great, Master Torres. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well, sir. Now, sir, what part of the country are you in right now, sir?
I am in Los Angeles, California.
So you are in the City of Angels right now.
City of Lost Angels. Yes.
I didn't say the lost.
No, we're all lost out here.
Awesome. So let's start. Obviously, you're a director, a writer, a producer. I probably every single title that's involved, right, with a movie or any production. How did you first start?
A teenager, very, very, very early teens. My stepfather helped me to get a still camera, 35 millimeter still camera. And I just fell in love with the whole process of images, visuals. So, to keep it very brief, because we're talking about a long time ago and a lot of activity, it was something that came very, very natural to me. And I was raised in New York City, all around New York City, all the boroughs, Bronx, Yonkers, Manhattan, everywhere. So if you can imagine the 70s, little me running around with a camera, and they just kept getting bigger. Like as I was working, I would save money, buy another camera. And I loved it. I loved the process of just filming things. And back then, it was pure magic because it was all actual film when I was a kid. So you had to be very careful about what you were shooting. And then you'd send it to the lab and you hope that you get an image, Wow. So I was hooked. That's how I got started with the process of shooting things.
Okay.
And writing came about because I loved adventure stories, fantasy stories. So I said, sure, let me just try to write this stuff. And I enjoyed that process as well. Long story short, those two things got together. And before you knew it, I was just creating my own stories. And the whole thing was just very, very wonderful. And I had a very supportive mom and a stepdad. And eventually I met other people that were also interested in the creative arts. And that's super important. You don't really get to go very far unless you have support of others, or you team up with people that have the same mind as you do. So very early on, I started getting work as an assistant editor in New York City, and again, just one job led to the next. One job always led to the next. Every job, there was something new to learn, and there was a new experience to be had. So. If that answers the question, it was basically there was something that I was lucky to have found, found me that I was naturally fitted for. Like this was something I wasn't very good at sports. I didn't care that much about sports, except for martial arts. Martial arts I found very, very exciting from an early age. I wasn't a Hong Kong film student or movie cinema student. Back then, we didn't have VHS machines. We didn't have anything. We didn't have anything. So it would be like you would go to these theaters in Times Square every once in a while. So the influence was just martial arts. There was something about martial arts that was also very cinematic to me. Like it was very visual. I wasn't so much into the sparring as I was into kata and forms. And I always found it magical. It was beautiful. All of them, like all influences.
Right. Did you have a specific, favorite martial artist that really inspired you at that time?
Yes. At that time, there was only one person, Bruce Lee.
The dragon himself.
Yeah, there was only one person. But I wasn't like a super fan. Like I was in this other interview recently, and I made the mistake of saying, and Bruce Lee this was in Viking Samurai.
Yeah. Yep.
So I said one thing, which was way off. It was like, and Bruce Lee, and he was born in China, and it's like, no, he went to China. He was raised there, but he wasn't born there.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not a scholar of Bruce Lee lore. So yeah, he was influential. Miyamoto Musashi, the
Mm,
Japanese swordsman, was
yes.
very influential. Like once I started reading about those things, like the Book of Five Rings was to me blew my mind.
Right.
The economy of movement that he was speaking about, or that at least that I picked up from his writings. There was others that were not necessarily martial artists. So those are the two martial artists, Bruce Lee and Musashi.
Musashi. Yeah.
Different
I
worlds
mean,
together, but yeah,
yeah, but still iconic. I mean, you know what I mean? Both of them, and the Book of Five Rings.
yeah,
I think it's been written a couple different times.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So at what point do you feel like, you started to get better with your career? And, what was that you could say, hey, this project or this picture really was my jump off. This was the one that kind of started
Yeah.
everything.
This is going to sound weird, but for me, the turning point was when I was still married, and we had just had Nastasia, my daughter, and I got a job at what was then American Cable Systems. This was in Ossining, New York. Ossining, and they had Croton, all these Hudson, cities on the Hudson, but mostly Ossining.
Hmm.
And I had access to all of these cameras, that were better than anything that I could afford.
Right.
One of the reasons why I took the job, aside from getting paid. But again, I was lucky because I got a job at something that kind of matched what my ambitions were. So I just started putting things together, and then I did a documentary series called "Worlds Within This World." And what
Hmm.
it was is a documentary series that was featuring artists, sculptors, one pianist, and I can't remember the third. But these were people that lived on the Hudson, cities like Croton, Peekskill, Ossining, New York.
Okay.
One man in particular saw one of those episodes. His name is Andre Delavar. He's no longer alive.
Hmm.
But his family, he was like a world-class pianist, and I didn't do this expecting a huge audience. I was just happy to be shooting things,
Right. Right. Right.
what I had learned. This was after the Marine Corps. I was in my mid-20s and that sort of thing. This man was doing travel films at that time. Like his father used to do travel films. His grandfather used to do travel films. So they're from Austria,
Hmm.
and fairly well-to-do family. So he hired me to do what at that time was a brand new idea, which was to do travel films.
Right.
That was the first time that I actually got paid like a lot of money, and
Wow.
got to travel. Went to Vienna, Graz, all of these Austrian cities, and went to Morocco,
Mm. Mm.
places in Morocco.
Right.
It just opened up the world for me. Now, to go from the 13-year-old that bought this little camera, which was
Right.
used
Yeah.
with his stepdad's help, to 10, 12 years, 13 years later, and actually being hired to just shoot these things and go and travel. To me, that was the breakthrough, because what it said was, "Hey, I can actually do this." It's
Right.
like this is for real.
Right.
There is no. I was fortunate. I understand what you were telling me earlier. When you become a parent and you're married, you have responsibilities.
Right.
So I was super, super lucky to get those opportunities. It was like nonstop, one opportunity.
Right.
That event, when this guy took a look at what I did on local cable access station, right, and said, "Hey, I like what you're doing and how you piece these things together, and would you be interested in?" That's all she wrote. After that, I was able to open up my own business, and I was able to leave the cable access company.
Hmm.
But I worked with people that became lifelong friends.
That's awesome.
And if she ever gets to see this, I know she's still alive. Her name is Cheeky. That's one.
Okay.
She's out on, I think she's in Peekskill. But she's married. She has a family, and she was just nonstop, man. So again, it's like you're really fortunate if you work with people that are of the same mindset as you are, and nothing is impossible. It's
Right.
like, we don't have money, we don't have this, but we're going to shoot something.
Right. Right. You have a vision. A vision.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That was a picture for me.
Wow. Louis, we have I don't know if this is a friend of yours, but a Roberto Quintana from Nicaragua says, my respect, greetings from Nicaragua. So they're tuning into our show today.
Hello from Nicaragua. What was the name again?
Roberto, and then Quintana, Quintana.
Roberto Quitaña, hello desde Nicaragua. Un placer conocerlo y gracias por su mensaje.
I didn't know if he was, maybe one of your constituents or friends, because I don't think he's on my, Facebook thing, but he may be watching it live, so it's good. See, sir, people, look at that. Oh, we get him from all over.
We were just talking about this. It's like when I did the little documentary, you never know who's watching.
No, never. Yeah. So now at that point, did you always have in the back of your mind, you said, you know what? I want to do some type of film or some type of project with martial arts. Before we jump into what I know everybody wants us to jump into, okay, did you know at that time, you know what? I really like this physical expression. I want to capture it. Or was that later on?
No, very, very early on, because I was really, I'm not a great martial artist by any means, but I'm a lifelong student of the ideas of martial arts, dignity, integrity, discipline, all of these things, defending others, all of that. So yeah, the very earliest things that I wrote were martial arts films. My very first short film was actually, first I did documentaries called Paths of Discipline, where I took specific martial arts in New York City and followed the teachers of those schools. One of them, some of your viewers may or may not know, was Sensei William Oliver of Seido Karate in Manhattan. He's since moved on, but he was like, I wanted to follow these people. Then I followed one of the stunt doubles for Shonuff in The Last Dragon.
Oh, wow.
And so I was following these people that had these schools, but they had to be like serious martial artists. That went well. And then my very first narrative, a dramatic piece, was with the help of a friend of mine who knew him, starring Timok of The Last Dragon.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he was in that, and it was a short film that we did in New York, and we shot parts of it. We shot that on 16 millimeter. Great experience. So that was the very first narrative film that I did.
Wow. Was that prior to him doing The Last Dragon or afterwards?
It was after.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. It was after, and he was super, super, we became good friends. And thanks to him, I got to meet other people here, and we'll get to that later. But yeah, that was the very first narrative piece. And I always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to do something with martial arts. But not so much the Hong Kong cinema, the wire work, like a lot of people that I knew from tournaments, they all wanted to destroy and kill. Me, I wanted the martial arts to be sort of part of the character's life, but not be the center of what I was shooting.
Right. Now, I'm going to name two films, and I'm hoping on the hierarchy of things that these came before, what we're going to talk later. So the film Alpha Dog, was that, where was that in your career?
Alpha Dog was after I had worked on Training Day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was like Howard Davidson, other people brought me out to the Training Day. And then again, you meet other people. Always do a good job, no matter what it is. You could be the production assistant picking up trash. And I've done that on set. Wow. Do a good job and people will notice. So everything, it wasn't like me making phone calls. Every job gave me an opportunity because someone acknowledged the commitment that I had made to that job. So first there was Training Day, and then
Alpha Dog.
Then Alpha Dog, then Soul Plane.
So let's go back to Training Day. I mean,
okay,
that's a legendary movie. Oscar winner Denzel Washington was in it. New Jersey native Ethan Hawke was in it. I mean, what was it like? It's funny because Ethan is a graduate of a preparatory school in New Jersey called the Hun School of Princeton, and that's where both of my boys graduated from. So yeah. So what was it like to work with Denzel and those guys? I mean, I want to know.
It was fun. He was very, very dedicated. Here's a funny story. My daughter, when I got the call, hey, would you like to work in transportation? It was transportation. Now, it doesn't sound very glamorous, but I'll tell you, especially in a film like Training Day, we were not on studio stages. We were like Compton, South Central. We were on the streets. Right. So transportation was like one of those super important departments because everything went through transportation.
Right.
And
Right.
it was a wonderful experience for me. I'd already written Only the Strong and all of that stuff. So this came much later. I wanted to know more about filmmaking, and this was an opportunity. So anyway, I get a phone call to work on this thing, and it's like, it's this movie, and it's starring Denzel. And I'm like, my daughter loves Denzel. That was
Wow.
honestly why I did it, because I thought my daughter loves The Preacher's Wife at that time.
Okay.
The Preacher's Wife.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, I'm in. And after school, can I, like bring my daughter? And it's like,
Right.
I don't know if you're going to want your kid in some of these neighborhoods, but we'll see what we can do.
Right.
Sure enough, my daughter gets to meet Denzel, and she's terrified. But I already taken the job, so I couldn't quit.
Right. Right.
Ethan saved the day, because then he started uh, being Nastasia's buddy on set.
Nice.
The film, his character was a brand new parent.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
this kind of worked. It worked out for everybody.
Work together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. How old? Say it again. How old was your daughter at that time?
She was 12, 13.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the experience with Denzel was great, because this guy, he drove himself to set. Like he didn't have an entourage or anything like that. You would think, because
Right.
of where we were shooting. He didn't do it for the money. It wasn't a huge payday for him. I know all of this for like real deal. In transportation, you also get to work with every department. For anybody who's really thinking about learning a lot about on-the-job experiences, get a job with the Teamsters.
Okay.
Better than the mailroom, at an agency. Get
Right.
a job with the Teamsters. To date, some of my best friends and mentors, especially Howard Davidson. This guy goes way back. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to work with Denzel, because he was very serious about what he was doing. He was very committed. He didn't have an attitude about anything. It's like he was there to do his job, and there was nothing glamorous about this shoot. I mean, again, we were shooting it in sequence too, so it's not like we had this really beautiful base camp, on a back lot at a studio. We were on the move almost every day.
And the areas, I remember reading a little bit about that film. Some of the areas, it was like the first time that they had filmed right in those gang areas and things like that. Yeah. I mean, wow.
Yeah. A lot of the work for that. I mean, if anybody's interested, I wouldn't recommend doing that to anybody. Like after training day, I got a lot of calls to work in these neighborhoods, and it's like, guys, look, it's not like I got a street pass to shoot wherever. It doesn't work that way. It's training day had a big crew. We had a lot of Nation of Islam people on security. Wow. Okay. We had a lot of Teamsters. We had a lot of off-duty police officers. And to Antoine Fuqua's credit, he knew, and Denzel's credit, they knew that they had to have the cooperation of people who lived in those neighborhoods.
Okay.
So there were a lot of meetings that took place before the crew. The rest of us were hired, right? Where I think Bones, who's no longer with us, I think he was killed recently, a few years ago.
Yeah.
He had a part in the film. There were a lot of, and it wasn't about money. It was just about respect. It's like, we're going to be filming in these neighborhoods. Who is for or against? There was a lot of that going on.
Right.
Denzel was a big part of that, because what he did was he started programs where it's like, no, let's not just shoot here, take advantage of these people, and then leave. It's like, what can we do for you?
Oh, so he tried to give back to the community far as what he was, once you guys were there, like you said, not just using him, he basically gave back. That's amazing.
Gave back. He would like make time to take pictures with people.
Wow.
Just so, I mean, it was insane. It was another valuable lesson about how to not just make a movie, but also respect different people and subcultures and communities.
I mean, that was an iconic role for him. He obviously won an Oscar. The film is a cult classic. I mean, I just seen it the other day. I think it's still on. They just put it on Netflix again. You know what I mean? So that means it's, everybody's watching it. But wow. So then that led you to Alpha Dog, and Alpha Dog had some decent stars in that one as well.
Yeah. Alpha Dog was Bruce Willis, Sharon Stone, Emile Hirsch before he got in trouble. Let's see, who else did we have in that? There was a bunch of folks. Olivia Wilde, who went on to be wonderful director. She's directing right now.
Hmm.
Um, and Dominic Swain, a lot of people, a
Right, right, right,
lot
right.
of people. Yeah. Also,
Wow.
another one where we were constantly on the move. We were not on sound stages a lot. Like
Were
those were real
you,
locations.
Lewis, were you transportation for that or you were a
Also,
different role?
transportation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So again, it's one of those positions. I'm working on a documentary series now that actually sheds a light on all of these jobs, that people haven't heard of,
Right.
but without them, there is no movie.
Right.
There's no movie.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people, if they find out about these jobs, they might go, you know what? I thought I wanted to be a writer or a director, but I think I'd rather do that because
Right.
it's fun, like stunts or camera work or sound or
Right.
transportation.
So after you did a few films in that type of role,
Yeah.
when did you transition, or is that the next step? When did you transition into the next step? What was the next step for you?
Then the next step was I received the call after Training Day, Alpha Dog, Soul Plane, Crossing Jordan, the TV series. That was huge.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I watched. I
I was
remember
in
that.
that for 2 seasons.
Wow.
So again, coordinating and learning and just absorbing. See, because I started out as a writer, I got a major break with Only the Strong, but I wanted to really, because I love filmmaking, I didn't want to, not pay attention to how these movies were made. Yeah, I wasn't just about waiting about being a celebrity writer or
Right.
something. It's like, no, I want to be on set
Right.
constantly.
Right.
And most writers don't go from job to job to job, and so um, I was, again, very smart move because I was able to work on a lot of things, raise my daughter,
Right.
and still keep learning about my craft. So anyway, after those films, then I was approached by private equity people who wanted to start a film production company. That we started a small company, and then we started doing documentaries and that sort of thing. But it allowed me to explore new ideas and again learn. That led
Right.
to other things, and before you knew it, I had enough accumulated where I can just start my own company.
Wow.
And 10 years ago, I hooked up with now my current partner. Now I've been made officially a partner of this new company, and
Congratulations.
more ambitious. Thank you. We have more ambitious films, including the one Nameless that I'm working on now. So the breakthrough was after all of those films, you learn. Again, somebody came to me. They acknowledged the time. Other people gave me a good report, and it was like, yeah, this guy works hard. He cares
Right.
about what he's doing. And so you made the partnerships. So that was Phoenix Film Group, then became the result of all of that. That's the company that I have now.
Wow. God
Yeah.
bless. That's you know what I think, but and I know because I got a couple people that just message. They want to talk about some martial arts, but
Okay.
the thing that inspires me, and I just want you to touch on a little bit, is being a Latino
Yeah.
trying to break into this type of genre. I mean, let's be honest. I can't name off the top of my hand, 10, directors that I know of with Latino. I can't, so what is it, what was it like for you to kind of break into that scene? And, I mean, do you find yourself kind of as a trailblazer or how does that work?
No, you know what? There were other people, a lot of people who, like Andy Garcia, Gloria Stefan, Jennifer Lopez. I mean, there were a lot. It's just, look, the entertainment industry in the United States and in Europe. You're seeing me hesitate because it's like I'm trying to not turn it into something that it shouldn't be. The answer to be, I
Right,
want to
right.
answer
Well,
you
and I'll
something
say
that's
this
true.
to help you, Louis, to take you
Yeah,
off the rope is the fact of
yeah,
everyone that you mentioned. I looked up to Andy Garcia,
right,
Jennifer Lopez,
right,
John Leguizamo, love him.
yeah,
But they were all stars first that transitioned into the next
right,
level,
right,
not just a person that wasn't a star and then
right,
said, "Hey, I'm going to write something."
yeah,
Again, I can't name 10 of those people that
yeah,
weren't movie stars. I don't know if
yeah,
that helps.
yeah. No, it does. It does. And when it really comes, the short answer is yes, it was difficult. Only because, um, like this, it would be the same thing like if you were an American and you went to any other country.
Right.
If you're not from that country, like we filmed in Romania, Spain, Iceland. So most of the crew and cast in those countries are going to be Romanian, Spanish, or Icelandic.
Right.
So what I'm getting by that is like, you can say that, yeah, being a Latino, it's more difficult. If I said no, I would be lying. There is racism. There is all of these things exist everywhere. But the matter, I didn't rest on that. I never changed the spelling of my name. Do I go by Louis or Lou to all my
Oh, right,
friends?
right, right, right.
Didn't change the spelling of my name. I'm not. I don't have a complex about being Hispanic. I speak fluent Spanish. That was my first language.
Right.
That's why I love the Nicaraguan guest, because I was
Yes.
like, yes, I get to say something in Spanish. So my family, I speak with them in Spanish. It's just you have to look at situations and say, okay, this is where I am. The trailblazers were really our parents. Like my mother was the trailblazer. Without her, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
So me, I was very fortunate without, my stepdad getting me that camera, so I didn't think about, oh, I'm going to break through walls. They do exist. To
Right.
this day, they exist. But
Right.
that's anywhere on planet Earth.
Correct.
Everywhere.
Right. Right.
So what you have to do is you have to love what you're doing more, and not focus as much on, they'll be aware of them, but not focus as much on the obstacles, the hurdles. They do exist. They do exist.
Right.
But I was more focused on the things that I love to do. Having said that, yeah, I mean, look, if you would have gone through film school and you come from a fairly well-to-do family, your chances are going to be improved, regardless of what ethnicity. Your
Correct.
chances are going to be improved because you already have a built-in support system that has broken through.
Right.
So, when you say, was it difficult? Yes. Was it difficult being Latino? It still is.
Right.
In some circles.
Right.
But it's not impossible. Like I've worked on, most people, regardless of ethnicity, never get to make a film, period.
Right.
I've been so fortunate to have worked on quite a few.
Yeah.
So
a true blessing. And I think obviously going into, 2023 is much different than when you first started. And, there's a lot of, just a lot of positive things, I think, going on in the film industry and the current, socio climate. I think we're at a good place. Obviously a lot far to go, right? We still have a long way to go, but I definitely think it's better. But, again, I thought it was very important to touch base on that because again, we're doing things. So, without further ado, we're approaching the 30th minute. So now for my martial arts enthusiasts, which is everyone, let's talk only the strong. Yeah, let's talk only the strong. You tell us how you wrote the story, what inspired you, all the different things, your involvement, and how did you get it from your notebook onto the screen?
Okay, I'll try to make it super brief. Time Lock introduces me to the writer of The Last Dragon, Louis Venosta. Louis Venosta introduces me to Lawrence Bender, who ended up producing Quentin Tarantino's early films, Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown. I don't know if there was one other one. They're not working together these days, but they had a company.
Okay.
So we were roommates. Lawrence introduces me to Sheldon Lettich.
We had on the show a couple episodes ago.
Yes.
Yep.
And so Sheldon and I and Lawrence and Sheldon's wife, Tony, were at this dinner and we were talking and, people just talking. It wasn't a networking party. It was just a dinner because Lawrence and Sheldon go way back and they're very good friends. So Sheldon was a Marine. I served in the Marine Corps. That topic came up. We had that in common. We both really loved filmmaking, all aspects of it. We weren't out to change the world necessarily. We just love filmmaking in all its aspects, writing, producing, directing. These are all filmmaking, specialties. Then the topic somehow, and I can't remember how it actually happened, but I discussed a program that I was involved in where I was teaching. We picked the Dirty Dozen, 12 inner city kids, and I was going to teach them some martial arts in order to help them do a little bit better in school. I wasn't out to teach them to be martial artists. And it was somewhat successful, but without getting into that, Sheldon loved the idea. He said, that's actually a good idea for a movie. And then several meetings after that, Sheldon calls me and says, hey, let's flesh this thing out into a script. And we did. And that's how the core idea of Only the Strong came out, was
Okay.
from this experience. I'm not going to say that this movie is based on my life. It's not. It's
All right.
based on an event
Okay.
that then became the story of Only the Strong. What
Okay.
is common to both Sheldon's lives and mine is that we cared about action. We both served in the military. I did this program, which was a very real program, but it was a very short-lived program because you can't sustain it.
Right.
Insurance issues, schools get a little nervous because you're basically teaching these kids about combat.
Right.
But it succeeded. It actually worked because these kids were so into it that they wanted to do well in school. I'm not talking about A students all of a sudden. I'm just talking about, okay, we'll show up to class. It was as simple as that. So it was very successful. That's how the idea of Only the Strong came about. And then Sheldon and his colleagues, Sami Hadida and several other people, really were the go-getters. I was not an entity in the film business at that time. I had the small successes that I did have, but Sheldon by that point had Bloodsport, Lionheart, Double Impact,
Right.
Rambo 3. Plus he had, I think Jack Gilardi was his agent, who was like this big ICM agent. If I'm mistaken about that, I'm sure Sheldon will correct me. I'm dropkicking, but he had already made it. He had made it. He was doing very, very well. So that's how Only the Strong came about. I mean, Sheldon could have done anything, but he wanted to do this story. It's not like we were super tight, close friends. We didn't hang out all the time or anything like that. I would be at the house every once in a while. And that's where I got to meet like Sam Raimi and Boaz Yakin and people like that.
Yeah.
Scotty Spiegel. But we weren't like tight. Sheldon would just have these gatherings at his house. And because I wasn't pushy, about, hey, do something with me, I think that made him comfortable, where he was like, okay, this jarhead, another name for Marine, this other jarhead is okay. It's like, he's safe. I didn't badger his guests. It's a fine line. But martial arts wise, Only the Strong just made sense because of the programs.
Wow. So how were you involved then with the casting, and who'd you pick? Like, did you know from the start you wanted to use Mark Dacascos in the film, or did somebody else bring him in? How did that happen?
Mark, no, I was not a casting director on it. That was Jim Tarzia, I believe. And then Frank Dukes was involved with the people out in Miami, fighters, that sort of thing. Mark brought in Mestre Amen Santos. But here's where I was involved with Sheldon, and I talked about Mark because I knew some people that knew Mark. It was just like something that was meant to happen, because I knew somebody who knew Mark. I got to see Mark on a Universal theme park show called Young Conan, who one of your guests also worked on that show.
Ron Thomas, I believe.
Yes.
He was in Karate Kid. Yeah, Ron Thomas, absolutely.
Right. So that show, I thought, this guy flies. Like, there were no wires. It was like Mark was doing all kinds of crazy things. And I was like, this dude is pretty amazing. So then Sheldon was like, well, we're going to audition this guy. And it took a few tries, but eventually Mark won everybody over.
Wow.
Because of a combination of, a desire to be a true actor, commitment from, martial arts royalty family that he came from.
Right.
So I will say this, though, to your question, I can't remember any other actor.
I was just going to ask you that, Louis. I wanted to know if you can remember who else was up for the part or who else was trying out for it.
There was no one else that I can think of.
Because what is this, a specific look they were looking for, or they didn't even have it? They weren't that far along yet. Like, hey, it could have been, I don't know, blonde hair, blue eye guy. You know what I mean?
What's funny about that? Yeah, like we were the one of the first really inclusive martial arts films. We had a non-Caucasian in the lead. We had a mixed group in all the students.
Yeah.
It really was a kaleidoscope of colors, but I think a lot of that had to do with Sami Hadida, who also recently passed away. But he's done some iconic films like Deja Vu. He's financed True Romance. You know, a lot of these films. Some of the Resident Evil films. He's got a company, Metropolitan Film Export, that his brother is
Wow.
now running. Um, so I think just Sammy, because he was, you know, this sort of internationally, you know, experienced person, he just wanted to do something different. And so if they did look at other people, which I'm sure they did, I'm
Right.
positive that they spoke to others.
Right.
Uh, it always seemed to me like Mark was the guy.
Hmm.
Like there was just something about him that said, you know what, this guy is unique. He's different. This was the time, remember, where you had, you know, Van Damme was already on his way. You had all of these martial arts action guys.
Right. Right. Right.
You had Chuck Norris. You had all these people. But
Yep.
something about Mark, and I think Sheldon has a little bit more insight into it. I think he had mentioned, you know, that there was Brandon Lee type character that they were looking for,
Right.
because Brandon Lee had just passed away, you know, with the
Right.
Crow,
Yep.
and Mark fit that. I don't ever remember having conversations about that. Of course, I wasn't in on all the conversations. I was
Right.
just
Right.
so,
Right.
but I do remember that Mark was just, everybody lit up when
Right.
Mark's name was brought up. And
Right.
if you see him in behind the scenes conversations, and he did one on that other channel, won't mention it again, uh, but he did a kind of, because we have a playlist for Only the Strong on that thing. You know, we're doing this
Yeah.
campaign, and you know, David of that channel, you know, he's been really, really supportive of the film. So it was always Mark Dacascos, combination of martial arts, acting ability. He had charisma, and everybody really liked him. He was reliable. When he
Right.
said he was going to do something, he did it.
Right.
He didn't lie. If we asked him, "Can you do this?"
You would say, you're right.
He would say, "If I don't know, I'm going to learn." And he learned like that. Like it was no big deal. So,
Right.
all you
Wow.
martial artists out there, don't be saying you can do something that you can't.
Right.
You get
Well,
busted.
right. Like I've heard some stories of some guys that'll say, "Oh, I can do wire work," and they've never done wire work, right? Or they say this. So that's crazy.
We
That's
had a few
crazy.
on Only the Strong that claimed that they said they could do certain things and they couldn't. That's how I ended up being in the movie.
Now, the martial arts of capoeira, was that always tied, or someone pulled that in? So how did that become the art that you wanted to use as the backdrop for the movie?
Also at the time, right, everybody was doing karate or kung fu or you know, kenpo was introduced by Jeff Speakman, I guess,
Yep.
and then aikido was introduced by, you know, Steven
Yep.
Seagal.
Yep. Steven Seagal.
So everybody was looking for the next new thing. It's like, what else is out there? And Sammy Hadida, again, being the hero, capoeira was always widely practiced, you know, in parts of Europe. So he's the one that recommended capoeira.
Wow.
And then, of course, Sheldon, being a filmmaker, he's not a martial artist. He's a filmmaker. He was like, "Yeah, this is unique. This is different. We haven't seen it a lot." I didn't know of any other film. I know that there were some films that touched upon it.
Right, but nothing that. Nothing.
Rooftops. There was Kickboxer 20 or whichever one they were on.
Right.
But, you know, but it wasn't featured the way that I think, you know, Sammy Hadida and Sheldon had decided they were going to feature capoeira.
Right.
So originally it was going to be just, you know, what I was exposed to, which was karate, taekwondo, shotokan, kung fu. And then once we saw capoeira, at first I was very skeptical, because I'm like, if I see anybody get on his hands and try to fight me, it's probably not going to end very well.
Right.
Until I started to develop respect for capoeira. And
Right.
then I realized what they were doing. Because, you know, like anybody else, you know how it is on the East Coast, you know, it's like, you got to bring it. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
you have to be on point.
That's
you know?
right. That's right.
Don't get
Absolutely.
fancy. You get fancy, you're going to get punched in the face. Yeah.
So Amen Santo, which was right, he was the expert. Was he referred by someone else, or did you guys sought out?
No, he was Mark Dacascos' capoeira instructor, which Mark was actually practicing before the movie. He didn't practice capoeira for the movie.
He actually was
already
a practitioner.
Yeah, he was already trained, because Mark is just, he's always trying to learn something.
Right.
And capoeira, I think, was a natural fit for him because he was a gymnast. So
Right.
he didn't have a problem doing a lot of the more aerial
Right.
things.
Flips and
But
everything
also,
goes.
Mark was looking for something more spiritual. Like at that time, Mark didn't care about what was effective on the street or not.
Right.
He was just more into feeding his soul with something different. So his teacher was Mr. Amin Santos. So once Mark was signed, sealed, delivered, you're it, you're the lead, this is happening. Mark is the one that brought in Mr. Amin Santos.
Wow. Wow. And then how now Frank Dukes' role was he was just a part of getting other fighters in, or was he involved with some of the stunt work?
Sheldon had worked with him before, so Sheldon brought him in as the fight choreographer
Wow. Okay.
for Only the Strong. But then it was good that we brought in Mr. Amin because Mr. Amin is a specialist in capoeira. I mean, that's what he
Right.
studied all his life. Like Frank Dukes knew a lot about these martial arts because he's an avid student of martial arts around the world.
Right.
Obviously, when you hear the man speak, it's no one can take that away from him. He
Right.
knows different martial arts. I know there's a lot of controversy. That's why I'm being cautious about what I do say, because it's like I'm just not into that.
Yeah.
I'm
No, I
like,
appreciate that. I
yeah,
appreciate that very much. We try to make sure we don't do any bashing here. Unfortunately, some of the guys do, and it's not
yeah.
just him; it's other people. They'll start to get on a rant. But at the
It's
same
it's
point,
it's the martial arts world. It's
who's the
like
greatest?
breakdancing. Back in the day, breakdancing is
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Who's the best?
MCs. It's human nature.
Right.
I get it. Martial arts world is highly competitive.
Right.
So, but for Only the Strong, he was the fight choreographer. He was hired to do fight choreography. Mr. Amin was the capoeira specialist, and then he also ended up, doing a lot more because it just made sense for him to, it's like, oh, so what would this character do, or what does this mean, or what would they train in, or all of that. So it worked out beautifully. Paco Prieto, who ended up playing Silverio,
Right.
also I think contributed because he had known Frank Dukes before. So they
Oh,
had
okay.
studied, he had studied with him or something. So he contributed. Then
He was a
Mark,
great villain, by the way. Great villain.
yeah, he is. And
I
then
like
Mark contributed a lot. Like eventually it was like Mark and Mr. Amen who were at the forefront because we were doing more and more capoeira stuff, which I'm very happy about because
right.
that's what I think makes the film stand out is that we were really into this spiritual quest, improve the mind, not
Right.
just the body, and that started taking the forefront.
Wow. So, how long do you remember? How long was the shoot from start to finish? Do you remember
I think
roughly?
we shot for either 29 or 32 shoot days
Hmm.
in
Okay.
Miami, entirely in Miami. It's funny
Oh,
because some people was like, they didn't shoot that in Miami. That doesn't look like Miami. And I'm like, no, we were there. It's like every day we were
wow.
shooting in Miami. Um, the pre-production was a couple of months. I wasn't there for all of pre-production. I got called in for some of the pre-production, just a couple of weeks before we started shooting.
Okay.
And then 29 to, like I said, between 29 to 32 shoot days. I recently started looking at all the call sheets, for the film. And I vaguely remember between 29 and 32.
Wow.
Again, all on location, all in Miami, right after Hurricane Andrew. So we had a lot of cleanup work to do
Yeah.
in a lot of places.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, did you feel after the movie was filmed, before it was released, did you say, man, this thing's going to be amazing, we're on to something? Or were you saying, oh my God, nobody's going to watch this thing?
I was a pain in the neck back then. So for me, it was like, nobody's going to watch this movie. Nobody's going to watch it. I felt like, we were doing something good, and I was very, very happy about that. But I just didn't. I felt like up until recently, I felt like maybe we didn't do good enough. And of course, the film's very brief theatrical run, though it should have been a success, right? Like
Right.
my ex-wife and my daughter, we saw it in a movie theater. And my little girl, she's like, "There's my daddy," and I should have been on top of the world, right? Here's a movie, in theaters.
Right.
And my mother got to see it, and then HBO played it constantly, for a while. But I always felt like we didn't do good enough. So I did not. And I think Sheldon feels the same. Like I think we were both surprised that to this day people say the good things that they do about it.
Right, right.
So, I've that
It's an
was
iconic
30.
film. If
Yeah,
you're a martial artist, right,
yeah,
you've heard of Only the Strong,
yeah,
and it's it's up there. There's no doubt. It's not like,
yeah,
oh yeah, that was kind of okay. Like there's so many martial arts films that are out now. I couldn't even tell you half of the names, who starred in it, but that film, Only the Strong, it's iconic. There's no doubt about it.
that's a gift to us. So thank you, and thank you to anybody that really got into the film. Thank you to your viewers, to your students. I still do come into, I run into people. Um, I get invited to showcases to see what actors are doing and that type of thing.
Right,
Writers seminars and things like that. Now more and more producing seminars and directing seminars, and almost always there's one person that comes out and it's like, you did Only the Strong. Like, they don't care about Training Day, they don't care about Alpha Dog, they don't care about Crossing Jordan, they don't care about anything. Only the Strong is like, and to me, I'm like,
right,
wow, we did something good. So,
right,
no, at the time we didn't think it was going to do well. We were sort of the one-legged stepchild of 20th Century Fox at the
yeah,
time. Nobody was paying a lot of attention to us. But you know what? It definitely struck a chord. Mark has had a wonderful career since then. I know that
right.
that's arguable. Some people are like, he didn't do so. The man has raised his family, and he's never stopped working since then. No one
Phenomenal
should feel
career.
bad for him. He's doing just fine.
Phenomenal career. Yeah, absolutely
Yeah,
phenomenal
he's a
career.
good friend, and nothing to feel bad about. That man lives well.
Right.
Lives well.
That's
So,
awesome. So,
yeah.
so I got to tell you, the success of Only the Strong. After that movie finishes, you do the premiere. It's in the theaters. The phone's ringing off the hook. You're getting all these jobs, or is it still, what? How did that
No,
impact
I actually was getting immediately after Only the Strong. I get a call from the company that did Lionheart, Imperial Entertainment. They did Lionheart. I think they did Cyborg, Nemesis, a few other films. So I get a call and they want me to be a writer director. So I got hired. They gave me offices. At the time, there was this little company that was sharing the same building as us called Marvel, right? Like, every time I walk into this building, I see that red logo, and I'm like, what are they doing these days? So anyway, we were, Imperial was like the company in this building, and we did storyboards. I was working on a film that was going to star Mark, but then he got pulled into another movie called Double Dragon,
Okay.
and we never got to make this film. I got the rights back to that script, so now it's one of the films that I am going to be making, and I've got much better as a filmmaker. So I expect for these things to actually see the light of day, like the one we're working on now. But yeah, I got called in for that. I got called in to work for the, at the time, owner of MGM, the studio's MGM. This guy had actually just bought the studio.
Wow.
So because his son was a fan of Only the Strong.
Go figure.
His dad just bought the studio, like one of the most iconic studios. And I got hired to work on a lot of scripts with that. Got to meet Mickey Rourke because Mickey Rourke had made a film for them at the time called Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man with
Oh yeah.
Don Johnson.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that was done, under the auspices of MGM at that time period. Then I got other phone calls to work on other scripts. Then I got a call to direct a little movie called American Vampire, which I go back and forth being embarrassed by it and being proud of it, because I think it's on the web. You can watch it for free. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
The whole thing. And I never bothered. I'm like, hey, somebody's watching it. so I didn't bother the people. It's like 8 people or 8 views, and one person likes the movie. Probably on something. I don't know. It's Sheldon's daughter, though, loves it. One of Sheldon's daughters.
There you go.
So Micheline, thank you. She loves the film. I was trying to do something good. We shot it in 14 days. We had no money. We had some fun characters in it. It's a vampire movie.
Right.
I fought. Here's what I'm proud of with that movie. I'm proud that we don't have any nudity. It was originally written to be very raunchy, very. So I'm proud that the financiers allowed me to try to make something a little bit more tasteful,
Right.
right? And something really goofy, like nothing works with these vampires. Garlic doesn't work. The crucifix doesn't work. It's a comedy. It's supposed to be a comedy.
Okay.
And so I'm proud of that. I'm proud of working with Adam West when he was still alive.
Wow.
He
A
was the
legend.
vampire hunter.
Yeah.
He made a lot of bat jokes.
Of course. Yeah.
Of course, his ideas, not mine. So, yeah, the jury's still out. I think we could have done a lot better. It's so hard to do anything in 14 days, and we were so ambitious with what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And we were constantly fighting. We had Carmen Electra in the movie, and it was a film that was struggling to be something better, but we were constantly being told, "Hey, you better have XYZ in it," by the distributor.
Gotcha.
So it was a fight. It was a battle. There's a little part of me that would like to revisit it, because we were talking about doing a series, and then Buffy the Vampire Slayer comes out, and I'm like, "We're done. Don't even talk."
Yeah. Kills it. Yeah. Buffy was big time. Yeah.
Now we might, because the original idea is still kind of unique. Right. So that's one example of just constantly being called after Only the Strong from people that were, none of these things were martial arts films.
Right.
The film that I was going to do with Mark next was not a martial arts movie. It was an action film.
Wow.
Yes, but not martial arts. American Vampire, obviously not a martial arts movie.
Right.
If I would have had any martial arts in it, I would have had the martial artists be destroyed immediately, just to be goofy.
You're right.
Let's see. Yeah, so it's been nonstop. Training day after that, I get a call for coordinating, because people knew that I loved film production. Everything after Only the Strong was not a martial arts oriented film.
Wow.
But it helped. It certainly helped.
Wow. Now, Louis, what do you have? I know, you have some new projects and new things you're working on. Obviously, whatever you want to talk about or not, but what can you share with the viewers as far as what's coming out soon, or what are you working on?
Excellent. If any of you know imdb.com, that's a wonderful resource. Amazon owns it, so it's a relatively safe site to visit for those of you with families, or if you're young. It's a great tool. You can really find out what's what. There's a film called Nameless that I'm co-director and producer of. We shot this overseas and here in the US. It's a story that deals with loss. It's not a martial arts film, although there are two really cool martial arts fight sequences in it. I mean, really good, like
awesome.
Yeah, like my producing and directing partner on that, Brian, I had to pull him back, actually, because it was like, this fight scene is going on for a little bit too long. It took us 5 days to shoot.
Wow.
So, but we had a wonderful, wonderful time. It's called Nameless, and now we're in the final stages of post-production, and we've taken our time with it, because it's a film that's going to represent who we are as filmmakers, and what our company is all about. By that, I mean, these are the sorts of films that, because we have our own financing, we don't rely upon other people to give us the permission to try to do the best films that we can.
Right.
We know the game, we understand the rules. We don't think we're better than anybody that does whatever. I'm very, very fortunate that my life's journey has led me to the point where I have now been made a partner officially. I don't have to go hunting down financing. So now it's about, we get to do the films that we care about. And Nameless is a perfect example of that. It's not a film that we plan on making a huge killing on, but it's a film that definitely expresses who we are. The reason I mention IMDb is because you can see it there, and we've put up images for Nameless so that you at least get an idea.
What's happening?
Yeah, the colors, the tone, the people. Soon, in February, we're going to start testing it with private audiences.
Nice.
And that will be the final move for us to decide, okay, we're where we need to be, or we better rethink some things. And after that, then we're going to cut a deal with one of the major streamers. And as soon as that's ready, I'll let you know. But next year is the year that that comes out.
That's awesome.
We've been developing other films. I have a film that I'm producing with Sheldon directing on a script that he wrote with George Saunders. That film is called Lioness, and it stars Gillian White and Michael Driver.
Yeah, right, his wife, yeah.
Yeah, and we're super, super proud of that because it's another one of those films that we want to do with a lot of quality. There's a lot of close quarter combat in that because of who her character is. So I'm very proud of that film. It's called Lioness. And we're now in the process of getting the third lead for the film. But we want to make sure that it's a person that is going to work well with all of us. I think Sheldon has been around enough where he doesn't need somebody trying to tell him, how to make his film,
right.
Or he doesn't need somebody being like, hey, why don't you bring Jean-Claude Van Damme into the movies? Like, no.
Right.
This is a story that I also want for Sheldon to be proud of, for George Saunders to be proud of, for all of our families to be proud of, for there to be a good message to it. And I know that that's a dirty word in Hollywood. Don't send messages,
Right.
But it is an action film, much more than Nameless. So it's action. It's an expensive action film. So that's one of the other things that we're struggling with because it's like, we have our own financing, but it's not unlimited. So we need to figure out a happy medium here. Sheldon writes big. This man, we've become friends over the years, but he writes big. Yeah. So we need to figure out the challenge is, okay, the sequence calls for all of this stuff to happen. Can we figure out how to do it without all of those bells and whistles, but not have it diminish the quality of the movie? That's the challenge.
Wow.
I firmly believe that if you're a creative person, you will figure it out.
Right.
Figure it out because the idea is to figure out what's the importance of the sequence. What does Gillian White's character need to accomplish during this time period? And if you stay focused on that, you can come up with really cool sequences that don't rely on, $3 million worth of bells and whistles and all of that stuff.
Right. So you already have your lead. So what is like?
We have our leads. We're developing it. We're hoping to be able to roll cameras next year. Sheldon's got another movie that I believe they plan on shooting in the spring.
Wow.
So it's going to be a busy year for him, God willing, if we accomplish everything we need to. And like I said, with Lioness, there's really only two things that are the question marks for us pulling the trigger. It's not financing. The real question mark is who's the third lead going to be in the film, and what distributor are we going to go with?
Gotcha.
Those are the two big questions. Like everybody wants to make this film.
Right.
So it'll be after the spring once we go to camera. Again, it's the film industry, so anything can happen. But at the very least, we've got a level playing field. We're very excited about that. That's awesome. Sheldon had mentioned Metro Dog, lots of dogs. So that's one that we're still developing because it was originally written for Moscow. We've scouted it. We spent a lot of time in Moscow, and then Moscow picks a fight with the Ukraine.
Wow. So you can't, the timing, right? The timing.
Yeah. So that happened. Then there's a script that I wrote that I've been pushing, and there are some martial arts in this script as well, called Fade, which was originally titled Only the Strong, but Sheldon liked the title, so he took it from me.
Gotcha.
For our film. So I'm going with Fade.
I like that.
There's one called Fade to Black, but there's a documentary, there's a rap album called Fade to Black, there's some other film so I'm just calling it Fade. And it's a trippy film. It's a urban crime drama. And recently, we've been seriously talking about shooting it in New Jersey, Fort Lee.
Nice.
Yeah, Fort Lee.
So Louis, I'm gonna give you some idea right now. You shoot in New Jersey, right? You definitely, if it's an urban crime, you are definitely gonna need a good-looking Latino, probably mid-40s guy. You know what I mean? So I'm just gonna throw it out there. If you need anything, let me know.
We will. We will need quite a few. It's mixed. It's quite a lot.
I got
I
you.
know. Actually, that's not a crazy idea because again, you end up choosing to work with people that you enjoy.
Right.
You just
Right.
bring something good to that set. People wonder why Clint Eastwood works with the same people or why Sheldon was bringing on the same people. After a while, there's a
It's like a
certain
synergy, right? It's like a synergy.
yeah. Because making a film is so hard. The last thing you need is to fight your own team.
Right.
So yeah, I know you're joking, you can't, but you know what? I really do. I want a good vibe on this set because the film is very important to me because it's like a
Right.
full circle for me. I was raised
Wow.
on the East Coast. My daughter lives in Jersey. The lead character, looks at is constantly looking at a goal that this is interesting. It goes back to your very first question. Is it difficult being a Latino? Did it work? So this character is Latino. It's
Wow.
probably one of the most personal scripts that I've written because it's interesting that with all the knowledge and hard-earned wisdom and hard-earned resources that I now have available, the same questions remain. Am I good enough to do something? Am I knowledgeable enough? Is it worth doing something? The same questions remain. So I'm seriously looking at shooting it in Jersey because there are parts of Jersey that make sense. Like this character, there are certain scenes where we're in parts like Fort Lee or uh, God, I'm losing the names because I haven't scouted it enough.
Right. Are
But
you
you
looking
understand
more?
what I
You're
mean by
looking
you
more
see
for a.
New York City across the river, and to some
Oh,
people, that's like the land of Oz. It's
right.
like that's a real place. That's where real people go. But I'm in Jersey,
Right.
so
Right.
there's always that element of and a lot of it is because people in Manhattan specifically, there's folks in the industry who are like like in Beverly Hills in Los Angeles. It's like if you don't have the right zip code, or if you're not born into the right areas, or come from the right families, or having the right money, or whatever, you're not a complete human being.
Right.
These are the things that we're dealing with in Fade.
Right.
So for me, I felt, and a lot of this is because of very close friends of mine that have said, stop pushing your own script further back. We've noticed a pattern. You keep doing other things, but not your own script. What's up with that?
Right. Right. And
And yeah,
but I the first thing I learned about you is you're such a humble man, even when before we started this process, but obviously once you put your thought to that paper, look at the beautiful things. So yeah, I think everybody wants to support you and kind of right and see
yeah,
like tell
yeah.
your story, because it's coming from the heart. Absolutely. I think that's
Yeah, I've got a
amazing.
lot of folks that are rooting for me on that. Sheldon has always been a fan of the script. He read it. Others, Boaz has read it. He likes it. There's several people that are behind me on that. Obviously, my business partners are like, let's do it. Let's make this happen.
That's awesome.
But I've been the one that's like, no, if we do this other thing, always
Right.
if we do
Right.
this other thing. So yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
That's awesome. Well, we wish you the best, all of the viewers and everyone that's tuned in tonight. We
Thank
want to
you.
see you, much continue much success and the wonderful things that you're doing. Um, so we are at the hour mark. And I say this with some guests, but I really feel this one. Number one, I do have to tell everybody this man is punctual. He logs in when he's supposed to and does what he needs. So if you ever get to work with him or meet him, make sure you're on point. Don't play around. But I do want to say we're at the hour mark. So you touched tonight on some things, and now you're talking about this new passion project.
Yeah.
What's the biggest advice you can give I may have a viewer that is inspired by this show? They're saying, hey, I want to write something, or I want to try to do this, or I feel uncomfortable. What's the biggest advice you can give to them?
Okay. Um, Others have said, keep working, stay busy. Very true. Like Sheldon saw the work that I had done before I had met him, and that's what impressed him. Other people had seen the work. Don't just talk about something. Absolutely. Make things. Don't worry about the budget. Figure it out. Make something. 5 minutes, 1 minute, whatever. But even more importantly than that is you have to ask yourself why. am I doing what I'm doing? If you can answer the why of something, that is what's going to get you through all of the negativity, all of the people that want to trip you up, all of the people that you know can make you question your abilities, can make you question why you want, what you're doing. And it's not because they're evil. It's just everybody is
Yeah.
carries a lot of baggage with them from how they were raised, what they were taught, any number of things. So I would say, in addition to staying busy and doing things, that's not enough though. Why? Always ask yourself why, because that's going to carry you through whatever it is that you end up doing, whether it's directing, writing, any aspect of filmmaking. And make no mistake about it, it's all filmmaking. It's just what specialty or specialties you choose to do. All of it is filmmaking.
Thank you so much. I think you really gave some really, nuggets of knowledge tonight, and shared a lot of things. And we appreciate your time. We're very excited to see some of your new projects. So we wish you the best with that. From the bottom of my heart, Mr. Esteban, I want to say thank you so much for making time to talk with our viewers tonight, and spend the time. I know you're a busy man.
So are you.
You're the man. Thank you so much. So again, everyone watching tonight, the Martial Arts Experience, you guys had a great episode today. There were some wonderful, wonderful things. If you didn't get to log in now, that we'll be posting the interview up. This is episode 8, season 3. We've had this is our 3rd year of doing this. And what a blessing tonight to have the legendary Luis Esteban on the show tonight. So from my heart to you guys, I want everybody to have a great night. Luis, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Torres.
We appreciate it. And I wish everyone a blessed night. Have a great night, guys. Thank you.